in this time of the service, there's a space for anybody who is inspired. We call it inspirational interval between the special music and the talk. There's not always something, but today we're really lucky. We have Hillary and her assistants who are going to come on up and give us an inspirational interval. Let's give them a welcome.
Hi, we're the Mannings, the Fab Five. So I just wanted to share with you a spiritual practice that we do in our house. And as a mom, I am ready and willing to fight all their battles. But as a good mom, I need to teach them how to go through life with a positive attitude and know that there's a space inside them where they can go for peace and happiness, comfort, and positivity always. So one of the things we do is we like to set our intention for the day. We actually have named each day of the week, and I'm going to let them tell you what we call it.
Have a marvelous Monday. Have a terrific Tuesday. Wonderful Wednesday.
We have a shy one.
Thrilling Thursday. Fabulous Friday. Super Saturday. Sunny Sunday.
Another thing we do is on our dining room table, we have little things that we talk about during meal times. And one is a little box of power thought cards. And it's just kind of like an affirmation that we read and we talk about how to apply it to our life. So they're each going to read their favorite one.
I experience love wherever I go. Love is everywhere, and I am loving and lovable. Loving people fill my life, and I find myself easily expressing love to others. I let go of all expectations. I flow freely and lovingly with life. I love myself. I know that only good awaits me at every turn.
It is my mind that creates my experiences. I am unlimited in my own abilities to create the good in my life.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Manning family. That was really a beautiful inspiration. And my invitation is out there. If anybody, you've got a little spark going in your mind and your heart that you want to share with the rest of us, we would love to hear from you. Well, today we are going to do some metaphysical Bible interpretation. But before that, I want to remind you all that you can look at the Bible in many different ways. Metaphysically, you can interpret the Bible allegorically. You can interpret it using an integral model. You can use it, historically. There's just all kinds of ways to interpret the Bible. And what I want to do is start with a tiny little parable, not from the Bible. I'm going to interpret this myotically and integrally. It is the parable of the mayonnaise. And it's a very personal parable. It happens at my house. It's about religious tolerance. Okay, so this is about religious tolerance. Some people like mayonnaise and some people like Miracle Whip. And sometimes when you want to have tuna together, sometimes you have mayonnaise and the Miracle Whip people just suck it up. Sometimes you have Miracle Whip and the mayonnaise people suck it up. Sometimes you have two separate kinds of tuna, right? There's the people in the Mayo Temple, and then there's the people in the Miracle Whip Temple. And they're celebrating tuna in their way, and they're getting along fine. They don't really feel angry at each other. And sometimes the Miracle Whip people need to come over and celebrate tuna with the Mayo people. So they consciously say, we're here to support you, and vice versa. And sometimes it is incredibly important that the people who like Miracle Whip and the people who like Mayo create something together. They put tuna together and they come into a different space, a new sacred space. They use yogurt or something, sour cream, whatever. They make something new and they celebrate tuna, okay? So I know you guys got all that. I want to talk about the Beatitudes, and most of you should have been handed a little tiny slip of paper with the Beatitudes on it. And if you don't, there's some in the back, or you can wave your hand and an usher might find one for you. If you need one, I'll give you one at the end. Anyway, it's Matthew 5, verses 1 through 10. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So this is, just even historically, it's some instructions, isn't it? Now, in unity, we go right away to whenever Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven, we talk about consciousness. It's kingdom consciousness or heavenly consciousness or consciousness that is greater than our small selves. And you might assume, when you read this, that the instruction should be to be poor in spirit, to mourn, to be meek, to hunger and thirst for righteousness, to be merciful, to be pure in heart, to peacemake, and to be persecuted for righteousness' sake. You might think that. This morning, the meditation I read had some instructions too. It was very much along the same lines. Aspects of ways to be that help us be enlightened and connected to God. Now, I like to get other points of view when I read something in the Bible. It helps me to look at what I need to look at it. And there's a Reverend Paul Smith who is a Baptist minister. He just recently retired from Kansas City, and he is a Baptist minister who is also working in the integral community. And that's Ken Wilber and Spiral Dynamics, and it is a very current consciousness movement about looking at life through all the aspects of your life, through the personal, through the group, through the community, and through various levels of your spiritual evolution. You know, let's face it, we are all at various levels of growth, and all we have to do is look at our own life and realize, well, what was your understanding of something 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, and you realize that you've grown in understanding and wisdom, and that you've integrated more spiritual enlightenment or spiritual wisdom, as it were, into your life. And he has this wonderful idea that just caught me on fire. He says that Christianity began as a transforming friendship with Jesus. when Jesus said, I no longer call you servants, but I call you friends, in the Gospel of John. So think about the difference that makes. If you think about Jesus and having a friendship with an actual person, Jesus the Christ, we often in Unity talk about the Christ within. We so often head for that. Think about a person real in history and space and time, an actual person who clearly there had to have been somebody there, even though we do not have, he didn't sit down and write the Bible. All historians agree that, all Bible scholars agree that this person, Jesus, didn't write things. He came and he taught. And most of the time, what he taught the things he taught ended up being Christianity. And this guy, Reverend Paul Smith, says, what if what he taught was not about how you become, like you're good, you're kind? What if it was about this absolute beautiful relationship that this person, Jesus, had with Spirit, with God, with Father? He called God Daddy, the Father, Abba. How about that deep of a personal relationship? And it's not about the words of, I accept you as my personal Savior, okay? It's not that interpretation. What if Jesus, this man, had such an amazing consciousness that the people around him felt, through him, this connection to Spirit? I know there's people like that, because I've been around people who, there's something about them. They are so hooked up to Spirit that when I'm in the room with them, I can remember my connection to Spirit. E.J. Niles, who's coming here, and she is coming on a Saturday, I got the date wrong, Saturday, the 24th of January, to do a workshop. She will also be here Sunday on the talk. She's coming here to do a workshop on the Bible. She is a person like that for me. When I'm in the room with E.J., her heart is so loving and pure that I turn into a loving and pure person. You'll want to see the transformation. And I know that Jesus was that way when he lived 2,000 years ago. And the thing about Jesus that seems to be remarkable is that people kept having experiences of him. Let's face it, the Apostle Paul, he never met this person, Jesus, alive. And yet he had this tremendous experience. I mean, he really is the most historical person who ended up writing about Christianity and the earliest writer of any Christian writings or scripture. He had an experience of a connection with a being who wasn't alive. Such a strong connection that he wanted to tell everybody, Jews and Gentiles alike, about this new way of living. That's a pretty big thing. So I wanted us to look at the Beatitudes, not from a historical perspective, but from a personal, that's what metaphysical is to me, a really incredibly personal perspective, as if we were in this transforming friendship with this person, Jesus. Okay? What about if you ask Jesus to sit beside you? This being of light who's all about the connection to Spirit, to remind us that we too, it's in us. So I started to look at the Beatitudes. And I know I'm not going to get through them all today. I'm probably going to get through one or two. The first thing, when I look at the Beatitudes, I want to get the historical perspective. So I have talked about the Gospel of Q, which Bible scholars, who I trust, have said that the most likely actual first words of Jesus are in the Bible, the Gospel of Q. And this is what the Gospel of Q says around those words. These are the teachings of Jesus. Seeing the crowds, he said to his disciples, "How fortunate are the poor. They have God's kingdom. How fortunate the hungry. They will be fed. How fortunate are those who are crying. They will laugh." So we get that. That might be the closest thing to what Jesus said. But I want to go back to the Beatitudes, because there were people. It doesn't mean you have to throw out what came after, because the people who wrote the rest of the Gospels, they were not in a room with Jesus or in a gathering with Jesus. They had some kind of connection to Spirit. And what we want to do is get to that connection. We don't want to get to the huge, the institution of the church. No, we don't want that connection. We want to get to that absolutely personal connection. It's in our hearts. And here's how I do it. I only did 3, and I may not even cover all those 3, because I want you to take the piece of paper home and sit with the paper, the Beatitudes, and you get personal with it and see what comes up for you. So when I looked at the first teaching, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I said, okay, I am going to do what I'm talking about. I am going to sit here on my couch, and I am going to imagine that an actual spirit of Jesus is not just inside me, but beside me, who can be a friend to me. It can be a spiritual friend and help me, because I need help. And a lot of people, this one bugs a lot of people, poor in spirit. Well, it makes sense, because it's kind of confusing language. What does it mean? Does it mean you have to be poor? Does it mean you have to be poor in spirit? Well, I'm going to invite each of you to take the words and to your Jesus. But for me, this is what happened. I thought about the transforming friendship of Jesus. I love that word. That phrase. Transforming friendship of Jesus. Available as a non-dualistic presence right now, this minute. Through time, through space, right now, available for me. And for me, poor in spirit equals lack of separation. So I meditated on those words, and the way I got to that is poor, meaning in my individual spirit, so that I see that I'm going to be poor in separation, or I don't want to have separation. So I'm going to be blessed when I can give away the separation. So for me, I rewrote that one. Blessed are the unified who recognize our oneness. Maybe it might be better to say, as we recognize our oneness. Blessed are the unified as we recognize our oneness. That's what it speaks to me. It doesn't matter what it speaks to you. You have to go home and write your own. And poor in spirit might work beautifully for you. Poor in spirit might be a beautiful message of truth to you. And you will feel that connection. Ooh, the next one I'm really excited about. Really excited about. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. What does that mean? Well, when I think about the integral version, the metaphysical version of how I want to look at the Bible, I think about all the aspects I have associated with the word mourn. And I think about what consciousness is that going to bring me to? I want it to bring me to an uplifted consciousness. You know? And when I think about integral, here's what I think about: transcend and include. Transcend and include, meaning that all the parts of my life and all the parts of everybody's life, all the parts of humanity, as we together strive to be better, we want to transcend, but we also want to include everything we go through. So when I look at mourning and I think about transcending and including, this is what I come up with. Those who mourn will be comforted, because when we are in beautiful kingdom consciousness, when we're in oneness consciousness, there is no lack of God, there is no separation, there is no loss. And the transcend and include part is very important to me, that because this doesn't just say get over mourning, this says those who mourn. So we can't just go from A to Z. We're humans having this experience on earth, so it's really important to go to A to B to C, etc. And part of the human experience is to mourn, because we are going to have loss. If you are born and you're on earth, and until you have actually achieved this enlightened state where all you feel is God all the time, awesome, you know, you're going to have some loss, and you're going to need to mourn. You're going to need to not shove it aside. You're going to need, it's part of life. It's going to be needed to recognize that part. So to me, when I say that, I change that into, blessed are the humans who recognize our wholeness. And I thought about the song that we sang today, I Can See Clearly Now. You know, I love that song. I just, you know, not just the beat, I love the message of the song. I can see clearly now, because there was a time when I was miserable. And today, for this moment, I can see clearly, and it's sunshiny. Right? To me, that encapsulates that whole beatitude. Whatever. I'm going to quick go through the meek inherit the earth really quickly. Now that one really stumps people. The rest of them after this aren't so hard for me to get just behind the words. But the meek inherit the earth. How is being meek a quality of transformation? Well, I think that everybody here has to get really personal. I don't think it will work if you don't get personal. I think that you need to look at the word meek and interpret that. Ask this question, you know, using the metaphysical question, what does this mean to me? What does this represent in my life? What meekness in me can enlighten me? Okay, what meekness in each of us? Okay, what part of you is meek that can help with your spiritual transformation? I can't answer it for you. If you want to come in and tell me, I'll be happy to make up stuff, but I can't really answer it for you. So for me, I recognize that what meekness in me can actually transform me, it is that I can find a meekness in surrendering my personal concerns over to the greater good. If I find the meekness in me of surrendering my personal concerns and get invested in something greater than myself, a community and God and many things greater than myself, and I surrender my personal concerns, then the whole earth is mine. So for me, that really works. Like, yeah, then the whole earth is mine, when I don't care about my own petty personal concerns. Blessed is surrendering to God. All of the earth is ours. And to me, that brings me to religious tolerance. Religious tolerance, which might be my favorite phrase right now. You all know what happened this week in the world. And as well as praying for religious tolerance, we want to have tolerance in ourselves. In the little ways, with the mayo and the Miracle Whip, and in the big ways, respecting, having tolerance for other people's, not only their religion, but their ideology, their politics, and their very way of being. And here's the hardest thing to be intolerant of, isn't it? I mean, this ruined my life. Okay, here's the hardest thing to be tolerant for: intolerance, right? That's the thing that bites the most, being tolerant of the intolerant. And yet, it's still our job. So this week, I invite you all to take home your Beatitudes, look them up in your own Bible, and sit with those with your transforming friendship, Jesus, and see what comes up. And please tell me. I really want to hear what you come up with. I would love to talk about them or put them on our website and inspire me. Okay, let's take an offering for unity.